Well, look, as I posted on Twitter previously, I think America, not just Donald Trump, dodged a bullet on Saturday. As I think about how devastating World War I was, that started with an assassination of the heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire caused by really bad executive security. The performance of the Secret Service on Saturday in Butler, Pennsylvania was either massive, inexcusable incompetence, or it was outright malice. I'm not one to believe conspiracy theories. So I will continue to have good faith thinking that it was just a series of inadequate training, very bad leadership, and the wrong people in the wrong positions making decisions, which could have had absolutely devastating secondary effects. Anyone that had an objective view or any kind of skills that stood where the podium was, where Trump was speaking from, would have looked out and seen that the natural spot, called the Sniper Hotel, of where the most likely spot someone would set up to shoot the president, was exactly the industrial buildings where the shooter located. Now the additional reporting coming out that this guy moved to the objective carrying a ladder and a rifle and was unobserved doing so is hard to believe. And the fact that there was supposedly a SWAT team in the building, inside on the ground floor of the exact same building where he shot from, also exceedingly difficult to believe. And the fact that the Secret Service counter snipers supposedly had him in his sights and that they didn't shoot, didn't engage, is shocking, or worse. And that, I mean, those guys would have been armed with at least a 300 Win Mag or probably a 338 Lapua, and with probably up to a 25 power scope. And at 140 yards where the shooter is located, you could actually tell whether the guy had shaved that morning or not. That's the level of detail. So them being able to see exactly what this would-be assassin was doing, and that they didn't get permission to fire, is also exceedingly hard to believe. Even once shots were fired for the protective team, didn't move him off the X immediately and really stood there. I think Trump was there for almost a minute. Epic, photogenic moment of Trump standing up with the right instincts, fight. But protection-wise, he should have been off that X and undercover, because obviously if he's exposed to the camera, he's exposed to another shooter, and Lord knows there could have been a second, third, or additional people taking shots. So it was just a fail at so many levels. People have said, well, there was women involved, all the rest. Again, it doesn't matter if it was male or female. What matters is, were any training or readiness standards altered for any other objective or agenda pursued by administration or Secret Service leadership that detracted from the standards of training that had been held to previously. And that's what a proper investigation must show. And I'm at the point of having lost confidence in the federal government or federal agencies doing any kind of self-investigation, or the FBI investigating the Secret Service. No, I think we should actually push for a panel of experts, of civilians, be it some retired old school Secret Service agents with a couple of world-class marksmen, snipers, ballistics experts, and hold hearings under congressional subpoena and have everything publicized, nothing except the disinfectant effect of full transparency. Let everyone be interviewed in a public setting on camera and let the facts fall where they may. Because we were 1, maybe 2 inches away from losing Trump. And imagine the effect on America, the violence that would have initiated, sadly, if the front runner of the Republican Party was assassinated while under the protection of federal law enforcement that are supposed to be good at their job. The other troubling fact I've heard is that Joe Biden was in Pittsburgh that day, meeting with some other political group, certainly detracting resources from Trump. But the fact is, whether they had a lot of Secret Service agents or not, there was a lot of local law enforcement and a few Secret Service agents properly managing the local law enforcement guys should have been able to cover the dead space, the obviously elevated shooting platform. And obviously there's pictures floating around now taken from behind Trump where you see clearly the roof line of where this guy initiated his shots from. So it is a sad day. I feel sorry for the super qualified Secret Service agents that have lived up to the standards and the excellence of the organization, because I don't know if it's political correctness or any deviation from the excellence that they'd achieved previously has certainly given the organization a very black eye and has rightfully shaken the confidence of the American people from them doing an excellent job. So that's what I've got to say on that now. If there's Santiago or Josh, if you guys have any questions or if anybody else, go ahead and send them. Sadly, I am at the RNC. It is a security nightmare, and it is a labyrinth maze trying to get from one place to the other. And I'm sorry I got caught outside, and I'm sorry for the Blackhawk rotor sound they should pass in the next 10 seconds.
That's pretty epic. Erik, what would you, aside from the effects, the events of Saturday, what would you have done if you'd been put up on the and you had to lead it? What would you have done right off different?
Santiago, anybody? Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you loud and clear.
What would you have done differently, barring the events of Saturday? Clean slate. What do you do differently if you're approaching that scenario, protecting President Trump?
Look, the fact that their perimeter was so small and they completely ignore effective engagement ranges from weapons that can be positioned at buildings. 140 yards, a 12-year-old first-time deer hunter can make that shot. I know this because my sons have done so. So the fact that they set their perimeter, whatever they think it was going to be safe, and that they ignore a building with plenty of dead space to approach that building, to set up, and that they didn't lock down all of that. They should be locking down any logical firing position with a clear line of sight out to 1,000 yards, not 140 yards. And in fact, you could actually make the case for the exceedingly dangerous thing is that, that this was supposedly a 20-year-old without a lot of training. Thank God he missed. A professional is going to have reach out to 1,000, 1,500 yards, especially cold bore with a .338 or larger type rifle. And even I don't believe the president was wearing plates. So any large bore rifle is going to punch through a soft vest, and it would have had devastating effects. If the sniper on Saturday had aimed center mass instead of at the head, again, we would have had a very, very different outcome. So, most of executive security is fixed with good advanced work. And unfortunately, that advanced work was clearly deficient. Advanced work will give you a clear look at all the angles of threats, and how are you going to get your protectee in and out, especially if something goes wrong. And you have an A plan, a B plan, a C plan with various rings of protection. And clearly it was missed on so many levels because allowing somebody with a rifle unscreened in any way, shape, or form to get to a spot that close is 100% unacceptable. If in the previous days of doing diplomatic security, if we as a company bungled an operation that badly, the company would have been fired. Everyone involved would have been fired. And it's a massive professional embarrassment. In this case, they endangered the presidential front runner, and again, would have had unforeseen, unbelievably bad second and third order effects.
Is there any reason why they wouldn't get Trump off of the X? I mean, if they saw the shooter and they were aware of him for 2 minutes ahead of time, is there any reason why they wouldn't have immediately pulled the cord and ended the situation?
I think inadequate training, right? As soon as those counter sniper guys were looking at somebody that didn't look right, that they thought was a rifle, the easiest button, without having to shoot anybody, is to put him down below the bulwark that is protecting. That's a ballistic protection that he could have got behind, and just stabilize the situation. Wait, take a 2-minute pause on the rally while that's addressed, and not even any shots fired. They didn't do that. The counter snipers didn't engage, and in fact, you see the video of the guy up behind Trump on those barns came off of his rifle, almost in disbelief that this was actually happening, instead of him engaging immediately and killing that would-be assassin. So again, it is not just one screw up; it is a consistent string of most unfortunate events that it's. The most logical conclusion is to say this was a series of significant deficits in training, not realistic training. Why did it take them so long to get him off the X? Because I don't think they knew what to do. You can even hear radio calls with one of the voices saying, "What are we doing? Where are we going? What are we doing?" That should have absolutely been drilled into them so hard that they know if attack comes from here, we move him here immediately, not when the president's ready to go right now. That becomes an involuntary action.
All right, we'll open up for questions here. Josh Steinman, do you want to lead off here?
Yeah, Erik, as someone who's run these types of programs in the past, how do you think about changing an organization's culture when it has sort of led to this type of likely cascade of errors across a range of organizational, aspects from training to execution?
It's, like changing a business that's going into a bankruptcy. A business goes into bankruptcy because of usually because of bad leadership and bad management. So change that leadership, replace it with proven, experienced people, whether you got to pull some people back out of retirement, or you scale it down and you allow a few competent people much more responsibility. But that's how you fix a place like this. And you retest everyone, and they either hove to the standard or they're gone, period. And no more waivers for anything. There's no other objective other than operational excellence and perfection in the pursuit of the mission. There is no other second or third order priorities.
All right, Bennett, we'll go to you.
I apologize. Some technical difficulties on my end, and so I didn't hear much of your preliminary remarks. I apologize, but I wanted to ask, and I want to frame this the right way, but it strikes me that just sort of the providential nature of what happened with the president. A lot of people feel like we've got kind of a new lease on life as a country, and I want to talk about or ask you about, what do you think is sort of what possibilities of hope have opened up, and how should we be positioned to take advantage of them?
Look, we're extremely lucky. The whole country dodged a bullet. The sad fact that some people on the left are still talking about better marksmanship training next time for, would-be attackers is an awful, evil paradigm. And I hope the rest of the left will condemn that language fiercely. The fact that the left has convinced themselves that Trump is Hitler means that they'll justify anything to take him out. So I don't think we're out of the woods yet. We'll never be out of the woods. This is a very, very dangerous time when the left has backed themselves intellectually into a corner that their political opponent that wants to maximize freedom and reduce government in their lives is suddenly this evil monster that must be stopped at all costs. So This is a sobering reminder of how dangerous the situation we're in. And I think, like Tucker said, they've done everything to stop him. They've done false impeachments, false Russia collusion hoax nonsense. They've thrown all kinds of lawfare at him with all kinds of bullshit indictments. And what's the next logical conclusion? Yeah, they tried. And you know, I'm not convinced that the 20-year-old was a conspiracy and was put up to it yet, but I'm open to all the information as it comes in. But we are not out of the woods as a country. I guess I don't view this as a hopeful next chapter.
We'll go to Eric's spot.
Hey guys, really quickly, a bunch of people are having issues hearing the spaces, and there's like a loop, like a infinite loop going on, and some people are blocked from listening right now. I'm not exactly sure how many people are affected by that.
Yeah. People could do it. I think you have to 10 minutes.
Got it. Erik, thanks again. My really quick question was, is there any precedent for the Secret Service to engage before being engaged?
Look, from any normal law enforcement rules of engagement, probable cause for lethal force means someone has the means and they have the intent to commit bodily lethal harm. And I certainly think a guy showing up with a semi-automatic rifle and pointing it at a presidential podium certainly would demonstrate means and intent for any law enforcement officer to take a first shot.
We would sure hope so.
If you were to walk down the street and pull out a gun and point it at someone, an innocent person that you were not having an altercation with, and some cop were to see you doing it, they would be justified in dropping you first before you fired the weapon. They would, of course,
100%.
They would, of course, shout orders at you, but they would also be justified in dropping the hammer.
Totally agree. Thank you.
All right, we'll go to 8 cents. Bottom of something. Can you hear us?
Andrew, can you hear us?
I can. Hey guys. I'm one of the people that's affected by the audio issues, so I didn't get to hear everything that Mr. Prince had to say. But so maybe this is a question that he's already covered. But
It's okay. Send it.
Just the idea of that building being unsecured. Who would make that call? Like, who has that responsibility on the ground, or maybe it's higher up? Right. I mean, some of the reporting has come out and it seems to be conflicting, but in your experience, you maybe have an idea of how the chain of command works and like who's responsible for this.
Sure. The agent in charge of the advance would certainly be responsible for mapping all of those threat areas and having a plan to lock each of them down. It would be interesting to see, that should be made public, exactly what that advance document looked like. And what was the plan for preventing a shooter from getting to that position? Because any person with a functioning brain cell could have determined that needed to be locked down. So look, most of the executive protection is done in the advance work. And it is unclear at this point if it was tasked to law enforcement, to local law enforcement, and they failed to execute. Certainly the Secret Service failed to oversee whoever was supposed to execute that. But again, proper management, this still ultimately falls on the lead agent in charge of the protection detail, because they're supposed to make sure all is in place. But the advanced guy is there so that when the protective team arrives, he can assure that per the plan that was briefed, all of those I's are dotted and T's are crossed. Clearly a catastrophic failure in this case.
Eric, quick question here. So how does the gunman figure out that this particular roof is unguarded?
Wait, say that one more time.
How does the gunman figure out this particular roof is unguarded?
Again, a fair question. And again, that's what I think that guy just pushed until he didn't. He looked. He came up to the dead space, didn't see any law enforcement stopping him, and he carried on with the mission. It's astounding that he got that far and did it, but clearly he did, and that's the truly unacceptable thing about this. And we don't know just how bad the fail was until we get a debrief as to who was supposed to be there, why were they not covering it, and what was the excuse, right? You hear reports of the SWAT team that was supposed to be covering that area, supposedly, that was inside the building instead of on top of it because it was too hot. Come on. This is ridiculous and unacceptable. So again, I think it's important for the facts to come out. I hope we can chalk it up to incompetence and not malice, because if it's malice, then we have a whole bigger set of problems that we have to undo.
All right, we'll go to Mike next. Mike, if you're ready.
What's up, folks? No, I'm not ready. I was having some issues with spaces, so you can jump to the next person and come back to me. Thank you, though. Appreciate it, Santi.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry, guys, for the audio issues here with the space. Eric, do you think is this incompetence, do you think, isolated to this particular event and this particular group, or is this a reflection of just systemic incompetence in the whole system?
Look, the only other experience I've had directly with the Secret Service was in about 2008 in Baghdad when, do you remember the shoe thrower that threw his shoes at George Bush? And I actually had a guy in that press conference because the deputy chief of mission from the embassy was there. And my guy saw the first shoe go, saw him committing effectively assault and battery on the president of the United States. My guy drew his pistol, had a sight picture, could have shot him, saw that it was only shoes. He holstered quickly, the first time I might add, and went forward and tackled the shoe thrower long before the Secret Service did anything. My guy took him down and put him in zip ties while the Secret Service stood there flat-footed. And so I just think, I don't know if they've gotten away from realistic training, or they just don't think the threat is real because they've done it in practice so many times that they take it for granted that nothing's actually going to really happen. I mean, just the microcosm of the sniper on the tower or on that rooftop that came off his gun when he heard incoming rounds. It was a holy shit, this is real moment, and he came off his gun when he should have been solely focused on that reticle and squeezed into surprise break and taken out that threat. So again, realistic training makes all the difference in the world, and apparently they've shied away from that. Because fortunately, the Secret Service has not been at war, per se. They have not had the pressure of incoming rounds and incoming threats. And perhaps they've de-emphasized that training. Like I opened that X article with, it is yet another federal bureaucracy that is unaccountable. That's not where the bad eggs are not fired, because nobody seems to get fired in the federal government anymore. And it's yet another federal security apparatus that fails us and embarrasses us. And trust me, our opponents, our enemies see this and take note. And we deserve better as American taxpayers. We demand better. There's plenty of great people to do the job. It's not a gene pool problem. It's an accountability, merit, and leadership problem.
All right, we just have a few minutes left here, but Julie Frederickson, if you're ready, we'll go to you.
Hey guys, Mr. Prince, really excited to hear your opinions on this. I'm actually going to pass the microphone to my husband, Alex, who couldn't get in otherwise. This is all we've thought about for the last 24 hours.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time arguing with people on the internet about, I guess, here's my fundamental question, and apologies if you guys already covered this because we did just make it in. But obviously, there's a lot of back and forth on whether this is more incompetence or more either giant plot where the government organized the shooter or a just trying to reduce security around Trump so if something crazy happened, it was successful. I guess of column A, B, and C, what do you think's the most likely?
For now, I would say my opinion is still on grotesque malpractice and incompetence.
All right. Sounds like the state of a lot of our national security right now.
Unfortunately, it would be consistent. I mean, look, it's not just you've seen so many fails, so little accountability. I mean, within the last 6-7 years, the Navy has killed more sailors than the Taliban did in Afghanistan in the last few years. Why? Because of just sheer effing incompetence of Navy vessels, warships with $500 million radar systems running into commercial ships on the open ocean. You have the debacles of Afghanistan, of the Army can't even deploy a pier to Gaza, a $230 million pier, and keep it operational for more than a couple days at a time. The Navy can't keep the Red Sea and the Suez Canal free moving of ships because of the Houthis. It's a systemic across the spectrum. And to me, what really makes it dangerous is you have a true revolution in warfare now. The acceleration of drone warfare knowledge from the Ukraine-Russia fight has democratized precision weapon delivery down to, out to 20 and 30 kilometers, down to a squad level where a couple guys with a small backpack can now deliver a precision strike that far away. It is in an order of magnitude change in warfare. Like you're going from spears and longbows to not just wheel lock or matchlock muskets, but already jumping to bolt action rifles. It is an exceptionally big change in warfare. And there's a lot of, let's say there's hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars of installed military equipment inventory that is now obsolescent because of this change. If a smart foe applies this kind of tech in a aggressive, clever way. So stand by for bigger shocks, because that's the real threat from an executive protection perspective. This 20-year-old with an M4 at 140 yards, he missed, thank God. A professional with a 338 or a 300 Win Mag at 1,000 might not miss. But a 20-year-old with an FPV drone, he's not going to miss at 3 kilometers or 4 kilometers or 10. That's what people should be concerned about.
So I guess if, I think a lot of us would probably agree there's the very deep structural issues both on the domestic security side and the international side. So let's say Donald Trump got elected. Let's say he offered you your choice of DHS or, thank you, Secretary of Defense. I'm curious, which one would you take? And realistically, we can all say oh, well, X needs to change. But realistically, there's obviously the real world you have to live in and the limits of what you can actually do. So which position would you take? And realistically, how do you think you'd fix the cultural issues that deeply need to be?
I won't answer that. I will say the most important thing is that Donald Trump has to win the election. He has to live and be elected and inaugurated. That is the most important thing. It's very dangerous to measure the drapes. I don't know that I would take any federal position. I know what I'm good at. I know that Western civilization is worth defending, and I will do all I can in every possible way to do so. But the leaders of those organizations must return to a culture of accountability so that failure is addressed immediately and ruthlessly. And I don't care how many people's feelings are hurt. If you're in the business of running the Defense Department or running the Department of Homeland Security, you are tasked with standing on the wall to protect our republic. And there's a lot of ways that has become a joke, a laughingstock, and that needs to be cleaned up quickly. And so it starts with a leadership change at the top. And I would say the next SecDef needs to seriously reevaluate every one of the flag officers. And I said it in the IM 1776 interview I did last December. I said the next SecDef should within their authority, terminate every flag officer and make them reapply for their position, and interview them and dig deep as to what they did in the previous 12 months to encourage and promote lethality and merit within their ranks. Because anything else is not their mission. Read the Duty, Honor, Country speech of MacArthur. He said, ours is the profession of arms. And it is our job we have one job, win wars. And sadly, as we've gone from a Department of War to a Department of Defense, the leadership seems to have been very distracted by a lot of other things, which has kept them from winning wars. And our leadership must return to a paradigm of we win, enemy loses every time.
We're going to wrap it up there. Thank you, Erik, for taking the time to speak with us. Thank you, Santiago, for setting us up. And thanks, everyone, for listening today.
Thank you all. God bless America.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the New Founding Podcast. New Founding has become a rallying point for founders and investors who are taking serious bets in the face of a stagnant business culture. Our venture fund backs founders building dynamic companies, powered by American ideals and a positive national vision. These are the kinds of founders that embody the optimism and competence of the people who come on this podcast. If you're interested in investing in our fund, check out newfounding.com/venture fund and follow the link to apply.